Welcome to the Industry 4.0 Club's Fireside Chat. The club's purpose is to engage the power of diverse worldwide talent to accelerate the global evolution to Industry 4.0. We accomplish this by hosting and supporting respectful, thoughtful, and interdisciplinary open conversations and creating quality content on wide-ranging Industry 4.0 topics to expand the reach of our community. My name is Mike Ungar, and I'm the CEO of the Industry 4.0 Club. I have over 40 years of leadership and experience, with most of that experience being in manufacturing at Michelin. Our broadcast today is entitled Industry 4.0, Comparing the European and American Approaches. I'm joined today by my co-host, Mike Yost. Mike, would you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Mike. My name is Mike Yost. I'm the volunteer chairman of the Industry 4.0 Club, along with Mike, one of its founders. I've been in industry about 35 years. Really excited to continue the journey that we're on here and welcome Alasdair. Look forward to the conversations.
Thanks, Mike. And as Mike said, today we're joined by Alasdair Gilchrist. And Alasdair is actually from Scotland, but joining us today from Bangkok, Thailand. So thanks for joining us, Alasdair. We know it's late in the evening there. So let me tell you a little bit about Alasdair. Alasdair spent 30 years as a professional in the fields of IT, OT, data communications, mobile telecoms, and cloud technologies. As a professional technician, support manager, network and security architect, and as a director and chief technology officer. He has experience in the deployment and integration of systems in industry, enterprise, cloud, fixed and mobile telecoms, and service provider networks. He is knowledgeable in a wide range of technologies and has written several books in related fields such as Industry 4.0, IoT security issues, and data engineering on the Google Cloud platform. So welcome, Gilchrist. Or Alasdair, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
So you know, it's rare we have a chance to talk to somebody who's as well traveled as you are. What's it like experiencing so many different cultures, especially in this field of Industry 4.0 and IoT?
Well, it's very difficult to say that because really, I mean, most projects that you go on, whether it be in the Middle East or in Asia or South America, where I've been, are all English based, and they're all international methodologies, so they will follow PMI, project management things. So basically, you're in a hotel, you're driven to work, and you're driven back to the hotel, and you don't really see much of the culture at all, which is quite disappointing, really. But there is things, huge differentiations between cultures, like in the Middle East and in Asia. You have to understand that the inherent culture is that it's very status driven. Mm-hmm. That organizational chart that we see and just discard in a second is absolutely the backbone, the blood system, and the organization, the life and blood of that organization. Yeah.
So hierarchy is pretty important in certain cultures.
Oh, it's hugely important in Asia. So when you go in as a project team, you normally inherit the value of that project. You will be seen as being, well, your status will be because of that, the value of that project. And if you don't really you have to understand that, because if not, you just cannot get anything done.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I was going to ask Alasdair to, I guess, in parallel with that. I mean, one of the points of Industry 4.0 in manufacturing from a technology perspective is that it's really breaking the hierarchy, right? I mean, there were very traditional technology stacks throughout the decades, and with the newer technologies and capabilities, there's more ability to go get the information you need from wherever it lies. And I know you've been involved with Industry 4.0 really, I think since its inception, a decade plus ago. So can you just spell out for everybody, as you see it, the main elements of Industry 4.0?
Well, I mean, I think this is where we'll lead on to with differentiations between different cultures. But if you go to somewhere like the Middle East or Asia, and you start up an Industry 4.0 initiative, you will get huge support, because the problem is, it's not really a problem, it is a problem, that it comes from the C-suite, the top directors. They're the guys driving strategy. So you have to be kind of up there with them driving the strategy. Then you go down to the high-level managers, middle management, who execute the strategy. So you have to be in with them as well. And then, of course, which is I've always said, you have to be down there at the operational, technical level, where you actually make things happen. Where you actually apply the strategy. And that's very difficult in status-driven countries, because I will want to speak to you as an engineer, but the CEO, present company accepted, might not want to speak to me. He's just a bloody engineer. I don't want to speak to him. And this is why it really does become very difficult to balance, who are the guys that will work at the strategic level, who are the guys that will work at the management execution level, and who are the guys, the subject matter experts, which was typically people like me, network engineers and stuff, that worked at the operational level.
So if I can just interrupt you for just a second there. Mike had asked a question. I know you mentioned to us offline that you were actually doing a project in Germany back in 2012 around Industry 4.0. And we know that that's where the whole concept of Industry 4.0 began. Can you help us by just defining what Industry 4.0 is from a German perspective?
Back at that time, it was a German government initiative to increase Germany's world status as, a major manufacturer. And it was Angela Merkel, who was the Chancellor of Germany at the time, put this out. And they put it out, and really what they were trying to do was to make Germany a bigger, better manufacturing nation. But this is the point, and this is the thing that we always come back to. It was a national thing. It wasn't based on, individual organizations. This was for the betterment of German manufacturing. And ironically, they actually came out with this working party that did it actually came out with a strange thing. They called it the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And Angela Merkel took one look at that and said, there's no way you are having a revolution attached to, a German government project. So they had to change it. So they changed it to Industry 4.0. But interestingly, with the German spelling, with the IE rather than the Y. And that's how it all came from. And everything came from that. China, but the Germans do things in industry. People sit up and pay attention because they are class engineers.
Yes.
And China, India, China made, was it Make in China? India did Made in India. And, all around the world, the UK did Boomerang, France did all these. They all basically copied, Industry 4.0. The German version of Industry 4.0. But unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, the EU did not want all their member states in this, what should be a free trade thing to be competing against each other. So what they said was, well, we'll do our own version of Industry 4.0. And that's what they came up with. And was actually not a bad thing. But like every government, it tried to cover every base. Its principles were not just technology and not just sharing information and building up, a trust basis with your supply chain. It actually was about things like people, society, and the environment.
I'm sorry. So can you talk a little bit about how the European nations rolled out, what the implementation looked like? That's a path you're starting to go down, talking about beyond the technology, because there is a pretty technology heavy aspect to it, but I think it's very astute, and a lot of people don't understand that this has started in Germany and then adopted by other countries as a way to build a competitive advantage at a national level. So when we think about how it's being rolled out and implemented in different parts of the world, what are the differences that you see? Maybe just compare Europe to the US or Europe to the rest of the world.
Well, a lot in there, but basically, the German version of Industry 4.0 was the smart factory. It was about smart products being able to, build themselves. Because it was based on the German industry. The problem is that once Industry 4.0, the European version came out, it was all about, a much grander scope. It was about, you can use technology, certainly build up and share data with your supply chain and build up these trust relationships with your supply chain, which drives innovation, drives everything. But you must remember people, society, and the environment. And this is what most companies disregarded. They liked the first two bits, technology, automation, basically cutting down on the workforce. And they weren't too keen, I would suggest, on the sharing of the trust.
So that's a great point. When do you think it? Because I know today we're more oriented on the people and the society side. What were some of the shifts? When did it start to shift more towards that?
Well, I don't think it has shifted. I think it's actually shifted away from that. And this is what I believe we're seeing with a much more slimmed down version of Industry 4.0, which is all about technology and the sharing of data with companies. And the other principles, and concepts have just been swept aside.
Is that why you think? Is that why you think maybe there's this Industry 5.0 that's been defined to bring those other elements in?
Well, again, we get the complications here because, you see, Industry 4.0, the authors of Industry 4.0, if we look at it as being the European research people, turned round and said it's been a disaster, it's been not good. It's actually the root cause of most of the problems we hope to fix. So they've now gone into Industry 5.0, pushing those missing dimensions, people, society, whatever, environment. And that's quite worrying because they never gave it long enough. I mean, they only gave Industry 4.0 5 years to the metric for success was to turn European industry from 15.2% of GDP to 20%, which was ludicrous. It was never going to happen, especially when you've got the pandemic and everything that came along. Yeah. And so they kind of wrote it off. And now we're pushing this Industry 5.0. But everybody else is pushing this Industry 5.0 as well. There's people in America and around the world saying, oh, we are Industry 5.0. It's just a ludicrous situation.
And Alasdair, do you still see those conversations being driven at a national level, or is it more vendor driven? I know I used to, when we were working in the US trying to get the term smart manufacturing to take hold, there were those who wanted to rush past smart and get to brilliant manufacturing as an example. So yeah. Is it the vendor conversation and the visionaries that are moving us forward so fast, or is it you still see it at a national level?
No, I think initially it was all government driven, and it was how would you say, we never managed the expectations. People were expecting to have vast improvements in, productivity and stuff like this. And these things just do not materialize overnight. And when it didn't work out, and of course, like you said earlier, we had the pandemic, we had things like this. It didn't work. And people just then, Gartner do a brilliant thing where they show you this graph, of a ridiculous high overestimations of things. And then, what is it they call it?
The hype curve.
Yeah. And then the fall of disillusionment.
Right.
And then there's the dead cat bounce at the bottom where you might survive. And this is a problem. Technology just keeps, we never learn from this. We just keep following it. And this was one of the big problems with Industry 4.0, is that people genuinely thought they were going to transform their businesses overnight or within a year or 2 years.
Do you think it was the companies themselves thinking they were going to transform their business, or those on the outside who were telling them, people who,
No, it was the
quite honestly,
consultancies just telling people and then not managing the expectations.
yeah,
No, they would go in because consultancies drive up everything. You hear, oh, by 2020, IoT and industrial Internet of Things will be trillions of dollars worth of things. And here's the thing, you've got to go now. Do not fall behind or you will be left behind.
Well,
That's the killer.
yeah, there is something to that, though, isn't there, about getting started so as to not be left behind, or not?
Sorry?
There's something to that, isn't there? Getting started so as not to be left behind.
No, I don't actually believe that at all. I mean, in my experience, that's just my opinion, it's better to watch what your competition is doing. You don't need to go out and waste all your precious resources, your capital, your staff, whatever, tilting at windmills. Watch
Yeah,
what
so
they're doing.
Yeah,
And
you're
then
suggesting. Yes.
if they're successful, it's really easy and really cheap to copy them.
Yeah, but you're still suggesting, though, in that conversation or in that example, having a strategy. So when I say not getting started, I think about no strategy. So
yeah.
you're suggesting a strategy, but being watching, not necessarily being the first adopter.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I mean, I wouldn't suggest that, but I'm just saying that, if you followed every one of Gartner's,
hype cycles,
you would be bankrupt within a week. I'm just saying it's sometimes best to sit back and look and see how industry works, how it's actually working in practice, and then think, maybe I'll copy what they were doing, rather than, just going out and spending a fortune, on something that you've got no real experience in, you've got no real capacity or competencies in.
Well, I think one of the things that I like to encourage people about is, I think it comes back to the point you opened with about the hierarchy and the business leadership versus the domain expertise, on the plant floor and in your production environment, because it has to be a marriage between the technologies and an understanding of your business, understanding of your processes, right? And if you don't know, and that's what the vendors don't necessarily know or can't know as intimately when they're on the outside of the business and creating solutions, they don't come in and fit, right? You have to re-engineer your processes and understand the impact on your people and your supply chain and all of those things. And so I think that cultural thing that you raised at the beginning is a big issue, not just in other parts of the world, but everywhere.
Oh no, I mean, totally agree with that. The whole thing is about everything you should be doing in your organization is for the betterment, to create value for your organization. You shouldn't be just thinking, well, what about if we put in this new technology, it might make things better. It has to be for a purpose.
Yes,
And
you're hitting
often
on.
we're,
Yeah.
we're being sold stuff that have got no purpose whatsoever.
Yes, you're hitting on a key principle. I think that we often talk about is um, you have to focus on a problem or a challenge, and
Yeah,
then come up with solutions to address that. Not be focused on the technology for technology's sake.
yeah,
I
I,
think that's
I
what you're saying.
totally agree with that.
Yeah, that's a great point.
But this is not what's happening in the world. What we're
Right.
seeing is, you know, suddenly a technology springs out of nowhere, and we're trying to find a place for it
Right.
in our organizations. I mean, I've had, directors and people come to me saying, oh, what was it? Blockchain or something? And they were saying, oh, it's going to change the world because he's spoken to some consultant that told him this, and we have to find a place for it. And I looked at it, I could not find a purpose for it at all. And they were just saying, oh, you're just being negative, And this is the problem. We have to look at what creates value for the business,
Yeah,
not just,
that's a great comment. No, you hit it head on there. Mike, did you have something else you wanted to ask Alasdair?
Yeah, just maybe one final question. You talked about the slimmed down versions of the programs, the initiatives, and I agree with that. I think people are trying to get to the end game quickly, and so I guess my question would be around what you've seen from an education perspective. I know a number of years ago that Germany was only teaching Industry 4.0 at the postgraduate level, whereas the United States, we were doing it undergrad and even to the community college level. So what do you see from an education perspective?
well, from an educational perspective, it's really been shockingly bad because even in Germany, there's an area in Germany, sorry, I can't remember the German pronunciation of it, which is really the startup community of manufacturing. Because remember, Industry 4.0 is about manufacturing. It now is evolved, thankfully, to actually take in all industries. But initially, it was about manufacturing. And, 2, 3 years after the announcements of Industry 4.0, many people in Germany had never heard of it. I mean, they just didn't know what it was. And most people didn't actually know what it was until it actually percolated up to the mainstream media. And once it came to the mainstream media, it unfortunately lost all meaning and purpose.
Yeah. Well, and I think that I mean, one of the things that we try to stress for folks is that we believe here through the club that people that are educating themselves, that are getting in community, that are learning from folks like yourself, that are writing books on it, sharing their experience, that's part of the journey. And I think a lot of the messaging from others is that you don't start your journey until you buy your first system and you put something in. So get started means put some technology in, whereas we believe get started means drive awareness, understand this, get familiar with it, network, get in community and things like that. So I appreciate those insights.
Yeah, I would think that it's not the technology or that, it's the purpose. What do you really want to do?
Yep.
And you should be, I mean, one of the great things about the European version of Industry 4.0, which sadly went amiss, was the fact that you have to balance, automation, autonomous systems with people, society, and the environment. But everybody's kind of just pushed these things to the side and thought, oh, well, let's do technology and let's do automation, and let's just not bother with the other two,
Right.
because they're a bit too complicated to be bothered with. And, it's sad because we're not seeing. I mean, you would think that you would see in the US, well, it's not just the US, I shouldn't say that, because organizations all over the world are now doing their own thing, this do-it-yourself Industry 4.0. And, but where is, it's like, if you think back to the IT productivity paradox of the 80s, the personal computer, the business computer made huge productivity gains, but we couldn't see it. It just was not, in the reports or anything. And it's like Industry 4.0, whether it be European or whether it be an American do-it-yourself kind of freestyle version, where is the productivity? Where is the gains?
Yeah, it's a great question to end on. I think, I think companies have to have that focus in order to, as we talked earlier, to focus on some result that they're trying to achieve, and then use the technology to help them achieve that result. So I think that's a great way for us to end. So thank you very much. So we've been talking for the last half hour or so with Alasdair Gilchrist joining us. Thank you from Bangkok, Thailand. We appreciate you staying up late to join us for this broadcast. I'd like to thank everybody as well for listening in this afternoon and joining us for this interesting conversation. The Industry 4.0 Club hosts conversations like this on Tuesday and Wednesday, alternating topics around themes of women in manufacturing, the future of manufacturing, fireside chats, and people, process, and culture. We invite you to join us on our LinkedIn page and also on our website at www.industry4club.com. So with that, Mike, thank you. Alasdair, thank you. I appreciate your time and the conversation.
Thank you for having me on.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Mike.
Yeah, have a great day.